What's up, folks, and welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Football Show brought to you by PT Creative. As always, I am your host, Evan Davies. Today on the show, we've got some few combine notes. Combine's kind of been covered to death already by this time of the week, but I have a few notes that I think are a little bit important. Then we're going to do, as promised from last week, the all free agency team. So I'm making up a team of the best free agents available, and thankfully, I am recording this right after the final tag deadline for franchise tags and transition tags. So that is why it will be up to date and accurate as of recording. So without further ado, let's get to the combine scene. Now, moving into the combine scene, it's been covered to death already because you get the classic, it's underwear Olympics, you get the people that really like it. It's obviously valuable, otherwise, the NFL wouldn't do it. But some of the things that we as fans may care about more, they're not as important. But I do have four notes that I think are important from the note. We'll start here. Xavier Worthy. If you haven't heard by now, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas, set the combine record with a 4.21 40-yard dash. In case you didn't know, that is fucking fast. It's extremely fast. That is an insane time for a 40-yard dash. And my hat's off to him. That's great. And he just made himself and his family a lot of money. The reason the 40-yard dash is important is because it gives you a little bit of that straight line speed. For skill players, I think it's worthwhile, or for defensive backs, I think it's a bit worthwhile. I think it's superfluous for any other position. A best thing I've heard about the 40 or other drills is its tiebreakers. I've heard as much as 8 receivers could go in the first round, and then there's probably 8 to 12 more receivers that are going in the second round, and maybe the third. And that first round to second round grade takes your money down a lot, and your second to third takes it down even more. So Xavier Worthy running that and taking his stock up was really, really important. So that's why this drill at the combine is important. It affects his family's worth, financially speaking, a lot. But from a pure player standpoint, everyone's being a little bit guarded because the last two guys that just ran blazing 40s and didn't have as much tape to say it, they went really high and then teams got burned. Xavier Worthy has better tape than both Darius Hayward Bay, who he's being compared to, and John Ross by most experts' opinion. I have not watched Xavier Worthy's tape yet. I certainly will in the coming days, but it is not as if he is a bad player. But a lot of people are being guarded, and rightfully so. It is just a 40-yard dash. But from the standpoint of a player working his way higher up in the draft and making more money and being more worth more draft capital to a certain team certainly is important. So remind yourself that of some of the drills at the combine. On the flip side, another wide receiver that had a hell of a combine in most ways except the 40 with Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman, a good receiver out of Florida State. Again, I have not watched the tape, but from experts' opinions, he's pretty damn good. The few highlights I have seen him, the few bits of plays I have, I do like his body control. I like the fact that he can high point the ball. I like the fact that he will just attack and force his way there with body control. That I absolutely love in a receiver. So that's great. But I think what's really interesting with this combine drill is he ran a 4.61 40. That 2/10 of a second from the rest of the class of the first round, most likely, can crush him from being a first round receiver. So that is tough. And it's something to note. But yet, if you look at the 20-yard gauntlet time where you're actually doing a little bit more football move related, he had the highest speed recorded with 20 plus miles per hour. So it's kind of like, does he have speed or does he not? Maybe he just doesn't have the burst 40-yard dash straight line speed. He's not a Tyreek Hill vertical guy. But working the middle or working the corners or doing those things, he may be extremely fast and worthwhile. So that's why I put it back to back with Xavier Worthy. The 40 is important to see straight line speed. And that's why drills are done is they show you specific skills and try to test that. But the gauntlet is a little bit more football related, closer to what the football field actually might be. Not that it's anything like the football field, obviously, because you don't have people attacking you, but it's closer than the 40-yard dash is specifically. And Keon Coleman did great in that. So what do you value? That's an important note to say when you see combine stuff. Is it's all flashy, fun numbers for the most part, but no one really needs to get ragged on unless something is just absurdly wrong. And I don't think a 4.6140 for a hell of a talented receiver is a killer. A lot of people would say, no, 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 no. There are plenty of receivers in the NFL. Puka Nakua, he ran 4/100ths of a second faster than Keon Coleman, and was in the Rookie of the Year conversation for a reason because he was damn good, and he deserved that. So keep that in mind when you see stuff like this. When you see the Mel Kipers of the world, and this is not attacking Mel Kiper or any other scout. He's actually one of the people that's just like, hey, got to be realistic, but that's not crazy. Um, when you see the Mel Kipers of the world, or you see the Daniel Jeremiahs, or Matt Miller from ESPN, or a lot of the other draft analysis guys, Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, so many other guys, there can be a tendency in media to just straight up overreact. I just said guys that I really appreciate and like, and I love their scouting, specifically Matt Miller. I've been following a long time since his Bleacher Report days, and I've absolutely loved his old podcast as well with Connor Rogers. But those are guys I respect. But again, just be careful because if your team drafts a Keon Coleman and you want to go, oh no, he's not that fast. If he's high pointing the ball and getting contested catches and touchdowns, it's not going to matter. So just remember when it comes to 40. Now here's the real game changers. If you've noticed, if you're watching on screen and not listening, Marvin Harrison, I don't even have a combine photo because it was hard enough to get a combine photo of Marvin Harrison Jr., who is consensus the number one receiver. And I have not watched his tape, but I've watched a lot of Ohio State tape in the past couple of years evaluating other players. It is, without question, he's the best receiver in this draft. And I can tell you just from watching that tape in the past. He's that dominant. He is that good. There's a part of me that I'm not one of these people that hopes my team sucks so I get a good draft pick when they start going downhill. But if your team's going to suck and you think they could get a good pick, you're kind of like, is 2 wins worth more than a great player? Like, I could even see if Green Bay sucked last year, I was like, well, suck good enough to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, because I was that enamored with the skill set. But he did absolutely nothing physical wise at the combine. Didn't do any drills. He only did team interviews. I think he did medicals technically, and he did a few like base workouts that barely count with like the defensive linemen. But he didn't even talk. He didn't even do media appearances, which is pretty crazy. Now, granted, his dad didn't do that either. I just think it's this. You see the tape. Who cares if he doesn't talk to the media at the combine? Who cares? The guy is clearly the number one receiver on the board. Outside of arguably Caleb Williams, he's the best player in the draft, bar none, case closed. Unless I fall in love with another player that I think is better, you were going to see 1 and 2 on my board are going to be Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. for a reason, because they're that good. So think about that. If someone's going to rag on Marvin Harrison Jr., if it's a Cardinals fan that's going to be dumb, or another team, maybe the Patriots, if they don't think they have the right quarterback at 3, or whoever might trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. If you're going to be a bonehead fan going, oh, well, he won't even talk to the media, who does he think he's too good? Guess what? You're going to shut up quickly because he's fucking great. And just prepare for that. So who cares if you didn't watch it? It's the new age of the NIL kids, and all of these players have been a part of the NIL their entire college career. It's the first class to ever do that. So it's important to remember that. These guys have been making business decisions. It's a business decision. Who cares? And finally, the coup de grace, the possibly most hyped prospect, regardless of position, in NFL draft history, and there's a lot of reason behind that hype, is Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, new trend that he may be starting did no medical at the combine. And a lot of people are going, oh, is there something wrong? It's a business decision. First of all, he did no workouts because he doesn't need to, but he talked to teams. He was apparently very personable, very likable in all those meetings. All of his interviews that he did, not only did he look like someone who was prepared, he looked like a professional, ready to go. He wasn't giving bogus answers, but he had a personality. He was engaging. He was endearing. I watched one interview with him and just went, "Yep, I get it," because you see headlines, you don't see necessarily what he says in person, or you see when he paints his fingernails against Utah, which I absolutely love actually, but you see those headlines and it's a really easy to just go, "Oh my God, this guy's crazy. This guy's over the top. Like, how dare he?" It's the new age of the modern NFL, and Caleb Williams is ushering in that era. Good on him for not doing any medicals. He did exactly what and he was there closing down the combine, by the way, being really supportive to a lot of guys. And also, as a Green Bay fan, I'm a little scared of Caleb Williams going to Chicago. But this guy is clearly the truth as a prospect. Whether he pans her out or not is up to the future and his development as a quarterback from a pro style standpoint. But from a combine perspective, if anyone wants to shit on this kid, like he's just been getting trashed for 6+ months because everyone's like, "Oh, the great Caleb Williams can't win a national championship." He didn't have a whole lot of help in USC, and he still made them a really competitive team this year because he just willed it into existence. So, from that standpoint, I absolutely adore the interviews. I adore the moxie that he showed, and I love the fact that he just said, "I don't need to give medical to 32 teams that could possibly use it against me later in a contract situation if I ever hit free agency or anything like that. No, I'm going to give medicals to the teams that might actually have me, and that's going to be 3 to 5 teams max. Don't be shocked if it's 2 or just 1." But I love that for Caleb Williams, and I want to put those notes because there are 4 important things to talk about. Specific drills, how they affect people, whether you actually appear across the media, and what you do at the combine, not just drill-wise, as important, which I think all 4 players really do that. Now, before we go to the free agency, I got to ask you something. You need new stuff? Need a new item? Well, I'll help you out. Head on over to ptcreative.etsy.com. You can scroll through here. We got new football-related items. We got some Packers stuff. We got some Philly stuff. We do have some Dallas Cowboys stuff. And even though I am not an Eagles guy, I will tell you this. I will have a new Jason Kelce-related Philly item up to show some respect and some love to Jason Kelce, as he's a great player and a good dude from all intents and purposes. But if you want to find anything football or non-football related, head over to ptcreative.etsy.com and you can treat yourself to some stuff. And before you go, use the promo code BLISS, BLISS, at checkout for any order of 2 items or more, and you're going to get 20% off your total order. It's all in conjunction with our Pokemon reboot on the channel, but use the promo code BLISS, take 20% off any order of 2 items or more. Go check out the Etsy shop, ptcreative.etsy.com. You'll find some stuff that you're going to like there, especially if you're a football fan. But moving forward, we got to go to the all free agency team. And when I did this exercise, I had to make some quick pivots because I made this right before the tag deadline. And then I had to transition real quickly before recording this to hit all these. But what I have done is created a team, a starting 11 on each side of the ball, and I've included some special teams as well, of players that I think would make the best team out of all those available in free agency. And I did this specifically so you could see the depth of positional value. If you're a team that needs a quarterback, you may be in luck this year if you wanted to go the free agency route. But if you're a team that needs a receiver, guard, tackle, it might be a little bit different. So that is part of the reason we did this over the channel and why I was doing this for pod. But without further ado, we go to the all free agency team of 2024. The PT Creative All Free Agency Team of 2024. I also want to say that we're going to check what teams all these guys land on and who's left. So I would like to do a tie-in with one of my favorite podcasts, the Around the NFL podcast, and make a Graybeards team. But not necessarily Graybeards team, but just the best of the leftovers, so to speak, of free agency once the true free agency period cools down. But let's go. All free agency team. We're going with the defensive side of the ball first. We're going to start hot at the edge. I'm sorry. Danielle Hunter is one of the best players available regardless of position. An absolute phenomenal edge player. He's the first guy I wanted on the defensive side of the ball that was available without a tag. That was very, very important to me to possibly get a Danielle Hunter. Was setting records for most sacks by 25 years old. He has had a little bit of injury, but last year and a half has been good to him. No injury problems. I just don't think Minnesota's going to be able to re-sign him. If you get Danielle Hunter, you're phenomenal. My backup to Danielle Hunter on one side would be Zadarius Smith. Also would be a good pickup. But he's been cruising around from team to team, and he's starting to get a little bit older. Just be careful with the Zadarius Smith. On the other edge, I went with Chase Young. This was more, sometimes I think free agency, sometimes it's best to, if you can, just take a swing at a guy. Take the lottery pick. Chase Young is probably going to get overpaid because he played on a Niners team and kind of revived a little bit. But he still didn't show that he was the dominant force that he was hyped up to be in the draft, which I did call, but didn't have anything going at that time. Even my old blog, I think his Chase Young's draft year came out a year before even my old blog. But Chase Young, I could see a flyer on this, especially with the youth, and the potential is still there. So we could see. Edge is a good spot. If you need an edge player, need a defensive end, you can find one this year. Just a couple names: Leonard Floyd, Emmanuel Ogba, Bryce Huff, Devian Clowney, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, Brandon Graham, Yannick Ngakoue. Like, they're all available. So this was kind of just pick your poison. I went with youth and a lottery ticket to bring it up with Chase Young. Now, defensive tackle. This one was one of the few that worked out for me. I didn't think Christian Wilkins was going to be available. He did not get tagged. I didn't even know he was up. I forgot all about it. Christian Wilkins is a phenomenal player. Love him. And also, sidebar, love his celebration being a Power Ranger fan, because I am also a huge Power Ranger fan. Christian Wilkins is a phenomenal defensive tackle. He is tremendous. And this is the one tag that worked out my way by the fact that he didn't get tagged. And I'd be lying. He's one of those few guys that hits the market, because as much as you want free agent players, you don't want to be the team that goes so crazy and does nothing with them. But signing one great key guy could really help your team. Christian Wilkins is definitely one of those that I would love if he could go play in a Green Bay. I'd love if he could go play for a team I love. And also, the next guy I'm going to have, if he can't re-sign in Kansas City, I would hope Christian Wilkins could go play in Kansas City to help them out. But the most no-brainer pick of all, it was Chris Jones. I thought there was a possibility he might get tagged or get a deal done beforehand. He's going to test free agency. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else besides Kansas City. I think they're prepared to pay him, which is why they tagged L'Jarius Sneed for a possible trade. But nonetheless, Chris Jones is available. Chris Jones is a generational talent at his position. He's one of the best players at his position in a generation. He's just overshadowed by the fact that Aaron Donald plays at the same time. Chris Jones has been an ultimate force in the playoffs. He's great. My backups at the defensive position, at the defensive tackle position, Derek Nottie and DJ Reader from Cincinnati and Derek Nottie from KC. Both good players, both good pickups. Again, defensive line, defensive tackle. Whether you're playing a 4-3 or a 3-4, there are players available. But it is an interesting group nonetheless. I see it more as a heavy 4-3 than a 3-4 play. But nonetheless, it's a good mindset to have if you need one of those players. And we're going to go to linebacker. Playing on my outsides is a little bit difficult. I went with Patrick Queen on one side. Tackle machine really showed a lot more in Baltimore this year, but how much of that is the Roquan Smith factor, and how much of that is his true development as a player? I liked Patrick Queen coming out in his draft class. He's more of a cap casualty for the fact that they got Roquan Smith, which I believe was also from the same draft class or just the year. No, it's a year after, I believe. But they can't pay everyone in Baltimore, and they got to get Justin Matabike. Would have made an appearance on my team had he not gotten the tag. Patrick Queen flies around the field. Really like him. And I think he's a bit of a better all around player than Devin White, who he edged out on one of my outside linebacker positions. Playing the middle for me, I went with Frankie Louvu. You just need a thumper to go around, tackle, destroy. I would put Frankie Louvu actually in the middle. I think he's a smart player as well. Kenneth Murray was a close one for me here because I think he's just a quintessential middle linebacker, but the talent hasn't always come through that I thought Kenneth Murray had coming in the draft. And I just wanted to shout out Frankie Louvu. Linebacker again, there's talent there. Whether you want to go with a classic old vet, or if you want to go with a younger player or a middle of the road kind of aged free agent, they're there. But I went with Frankie Louvu, and I backed him up with Kenneth Murray. And at the other edge, I went with Willie Gay. Willie Gay, I'm a bit shocked, actually made it out of Kansas City. Not because his play was so good, but paired with Nick Bolton, Willie Gay was a very, very productive player for Kansas City and showed up in big moments. And that's something I really appreciate from defensive players, especially, is so many defenses now are bend, don't break. But the best defense is the players show up when it's time to play, and as if that was a crazy statement to make. But Willie Gay does have the ability to really mess a play up. He's just inconsistent against the run and wasn't always trusted. But I went with Willie Gay here as a good, again, fly around the field, make some plays, hit some people, destroy some people. That's what I want out of a linebacker. I went with Willie Gay. Another player that I liked who just missed my cut was Sione Takitaki, who he has a similar factor to Frankie Louvu or Willie Gay. When he was in Cleveland, he was always flying around making plays. Not the greatest linebacker in the world, but nonetheless, a good player I wanted to shout out. Could be a good, cheap acquisition for another team. Moving forward, we're out to the corner position. This is where the tags hurt. If you need a corner, this year is not your year. It's just not. I actually was going to have CD Deuce, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out at a nickel position, but I had to put him as a starting corner because the corner position, especially after L'Jarius Sneed got tagged and Jalen Johnson got tagged, which I didn't see coming, um, I just didn't see any great reporting on Jalen Johnson. Once they both got tagged, it was kind of like, well, we got to pivot. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson had that one corner with Akella Witherspoon backing him up from the LA Rams. And I went with the old man, Stephon Gilmore. He just keeps being productive. He's not who I would sign. I never like the idea of signing late in their career defensive backs unless they're just still putting out at a phenomenal rate. However, there's not a lot of good options at the corner position, especially once the tags came through. I went through the entire list of available players from every team to make this. Corner was rough, especially at a premier position like corner. Corner was rough. Your next best players are Rock Yassin, Bradley Roby, Jeff Okudah, who I picked as the backup here. None of those say that fixes our problem. They're guys at this point. It's difficult. So that's why the corner is a bit rough. Then we go to safety. Safety, there is some talent there. I only have one picture available for you because of pivots. Antoine Winfield Jr. got the tag late. He would have been the only player outside of Daniil Hunter and Chris Jones that would have given me pause like, ooh, he might be the one I want to go after the most. I'm sad he got tagged because I had a dream of Green Bay signing him because I love me some Antoine Winfield. But one with Kyle Duggar. Kyle Duggar is technically on the transition tag, but it's a little bit more possible to get him than otherwise, so I still included him. Other good safeties are out there. You have Micah Hyde, who's nearing the end, but still a good player. The thing is with the defensive back, I don't want aging corners. Talented aging safeties can still work in the right system. If you can pull it off, Micah Hyde can still be worthwhile for you. Adrian Amos could still be worthwhile for you. But there's also good players out there like Eddie Jackson, Tracy Walker, Jeremy Chin, or in my opinion, the other guy I would go with as a second safety, My backup here would be Darnell Savage from Green Bay, who showed a little bit more bounce back in his step the last few games in Green Bay in this past season once he was healthy. So Darnell Savage, I think, would be part of the equation there too. And then we went to nickel. So nickel, again, I said it was going to be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and then Keyshawn Nixon was going to be my second, mostly because A, the corner positions are rough, and B, Keyshawn Nixon gives you the return ability with kickoff rules. Again, I hit this in the last show, but kickoff rules are changing for returners to actually get a chance to return the ball and the kickoff to be exciting again. It's going to be more valuable than ever to have a returner with those rules looking like they're going to change in favor of returnable kicks. You need guys like Keyshawn Nixon on your team because he is a dangerous, dangerous mofo with the ball in his hands in the return game. I adore Keyshawn Nixon as a returner, and I'm hoping Green Bay signs him back. Just for some reason, I don't think it got done yet, and I'm a little worried he's going to go elsewhere. And also, they have Jaden Reed out there returning punts and kicks sometimes too, so they may think they can move on. I don't think it's a necessarily good decision, but I'm not Brian Gutekunst. But again, I also want to put Keyshawn Nixon in there to stress the importance of special teams. It's so important. And also, he's developed into a pretty good, reliable, chippy nickelback. So that's another reason he also made the list, not just Packer love. And then we went, on the defensive side, I included special teams as well. Punter, for me, there was three options. It was Presley Harvin III from Pittsburgh, who didn't wow me. Thomas Morstead from the Jets. Tommy Townsend, I did see, but I wasn't crazy about Tommy Townsend. I think he's going to go right back to Kansas City. And then Corey Bojorquez. I liked Bojorquez when he was with the Rams. I liked him when he was with Packers. He's a decent punter. But again, it's punter. You can, if you need to go the cheap route, you need to save $1 million, you go get a cheap one from college. But a good punter can really help you out. And shout out to the punt game and our boy Pat McAfee. And by our boy, I mean, never met him, just a big fan of the show. But he, like many other punters, shows their value by constantly getting some pub. So punters and kickers are people too. Remember that, and they're valuable. It's just they don't come in to control the vast majority of the game. But I went with Bojorquez here. I think he's the best option out of the four that I listed. And at kicker was rough. Not a lot of good young kickers. The most reliable that still had a little bit of youth to him and still had a bit of leg was Kaimi Fairbairn. It was down to him or Greg the Leg Zuerlein, and Zuerlein I just don't think has a leg anymore. So kind of like Greg the decapitated leg Zuerlein. So I went with Kaimi Fairbairn. It's kind of a horse piece. Whatevs. It wasn't a great kicking market. So if you need a kicker, you're not going to find one in free agency very much. You're going to go the undrafted free agency route from college. That is the all defensive free agency team for 2024 from PT Creative. Now, before we go to offense, I just got to ask you guys a little something. Little something here. Would you want some more new content? Maybe not football, but maybe other things. Go check out PT Creative, our YouTube channel. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's rotating shows every single week, Monday through Friday. You got your reliables Monday through Thursday, and Friday is a rotating show. Monday, you're going to still get those classic Pokemon card pack openings. Tuesday, you get the podcast. True Blue headpiece. The cornerstone of the PT Creative YouTube channel now with the ONETA show. Just last night, finished recording another one of the great Smash Bros. Series in there. We've now done some Lego shows. We've now done some Pokemon-related content. We're doing some other content as well. And there's new stuff coming up soon. But check out the ONETA show on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, you get brand new Fakemon for the Fakemon region, the Halzari region. Just handcrafted, personally made Pokemon. It's a really fun project, and I think you should check it out, especially if you're a creative type. Thursday, obviously, you get the football show here. Friday, you get the adventure show where we're talking about specific places to travel. Last show we did, it was about Acadia National Park. Soon to be debuting the ONETA Brick Builder show where we're building Lego sets, talking about new Legos. Fun place to be. And you're going to get some more rotating stuff beyond just a possible Pokemon pack opening. You're going to see some Yu-Gi-Oh content, but you're also going to see random content from time to time just to have some fun, especially if there's live events or things in my area that I can help you out with. Check out Friday shows as well. But there's all kinds of new content on the PTE Creative channel. Go check it out for yourself. PTE Creative at YouTube. Help yourself out. And if you're already here watching the show, thanks. Go check out another one if you really want to. That'd be really cool of you to do. We'd always appreciate the help when you're there. Like, comment, subscribe. It's really important. And share. We love you for doing it. Thanks. Back to the show now. We go to the all free agency team on the offensive side of the ball. And yes, I saved the best for last, the quarterback position for last, because I wanted to go through and get some credit to all the other positions on the field. So we went with running back first. The obvious choice is Saquon Barkley. Didn't get the tag. Apparently the Giants don't think he's worth $12 million. Seeing how he's the only functional player on that offense outside of Andrew Thomas and maybe their second or third receiver. Yeah, I think he's worth $12 million. I hope he gets to a place where he can finally start winning. I could see him as a Charger. I could see him as a Texan. I could see him in a lot of different places actually being a functional good player. And if your team gets Saquon Barkley for the right price, you should be happy because he's a dynamic player. My second at the running back position, I went with Derrick Henry. I think there's just a little bit more tread and explosiveness on Saquon Barkley as a player than there is Derrick Henry. But running back it's a good year for a running back. It's a good year for the running back pickups as a free agent. So if you need a running back, you can pick one up, and because there's some good ones in the draft and the depressive value of the running back market in general, you may be able to get a good one through free agency for a relative price. There's a lot of names here, names that I like personally as well. So it's not bad whatsoever for the running back market. Now to receiver. I'm leading with Odell Beckham Jr., and I think that tells you a lot about the receiver market. I have professed my love for Odell a lot in the past, especially on my blog days a couple of years back. But I still think Odell can be a valuable piece of a receiving core, but he's not a true number one anymore. Unfortunately, time and injury has just taken that from him. And it sucks because I truly do believe if he had stayed healthy his entire career, he'd probably be on a Hall of Fame path. Because he was that dynamic of a player. And also his time in Cleveland, he was just wasted. Truly wasted. But I led with Odell because the wide receiver market, once you got the re-sign of Mike Evans and the tag of Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver market's rough. This is not the year to go get the great receiver in free agency. Thankfully, the draft can help you out this year with a deep class. So at receiver, I led with Odell. On the outside, I would have Tyler Boyd backing him up. I just know Tyler Boyd is getting some years on him too. So that's why I didn't go Tyler Boyd in a starting role. In my slot or my number two receiver, I would have KJ Osborne. I really, really love KJ Osborne. I think he has the ability to maybe be, in the best case scenario, I think he could be a poor man's 1A, but he's meant to be part of a duo. But if you have a good number one receiver like Minnesota does, that can free him up, he can be a very deadly player. I like KJ Osborne. I think he's going to get paid, but I don't think he's going to get paid wild numbers. And I'm hoping he doesn't turn into the Allen Lazard that gets too much money for the system he's being put in. But KJ Osborne would be my number two, and I went Gabe Davis as the backup because Gabe Davis is just wildly inconsistent. And as my third, I was going to have Michael Pittman Jr., obviously kind of leading the class, but got tagged. So I had to go Darnell Mooney. It's not like these are functional receivers, but they're not the guys that are going to be a number one. So there's no true number one receiver or possibly even number two outside of maybe Mooney or KJ Osborne that's really going to totally change your receiving group. Otherwise, I mean, like I said, Gabe Davis, Tyler Boyd, they're good players. Tyler Boyd's consistent. He's good. I just know he's racking some years up, and he's been kind of stuck as the third in Cincinnati. So maybe that's actually a longer his career. Curtis Samuel is coming up, but again, it's a little long in the tooth at this point. DJ Chark has always kind of been that classic, never got higher than what he was. But apparently, my wife loves him because almost every year on fantasy, somehow she gets DJ Chark. And Cordero Patterson is available. I put him on there strictly because it's just random playmaking ability from the offensive standpoint and maybe the special team standpoint. But again, he's long in the tooth too. So receiver market is depressed from a free agency standpoint this year. At tight end was another one that there's not a lot of wow. Dalton Schultz from the Houston Texans is by far the best choice in my opinion. Hunter Henry from New England could give him a run, but Henry's got more of an injury history. There are a few utility guys that could come in and help your team out, such as a Harrison Bryant, Robert Tonyan, Noah Fant even, like Bell as a third from Kansas City. But nothing. There's no guy, Gerald Everett as well from the Chargers. There's no guy that's going to like wow you outside of maybe Dalton Schultz, who's a good player. I hope he stays in Houston. I think this is where he belongs, but who knows? And if he's going to get paid hard, I think it's going to show a lot about the tight end market, just the availability with Dalton Schultz. Now we go to the pigs up front. We go to the offensive line. The obvious number one choice for the entire offensive line is Tyron Smith. Tackle is... There's not a lot of great tackles on the market. There's utility guys, but there's no great ones outside of Tyron Smith. He's 33, so by offensive line standards, that is old. But since he's had a bit of a hot streak with health lately, maybe you could get a couple more years out of him. I live with Tyron Smith and a backup at Josh Jones from Houston. I could see a flyer on Mekhi Becton if you could get a good price on him, just seeing if there's something there, but I couldn't choose him as a starter. And I went with Donovan Smith playing the right. He's usually a left tackle, so I think that should tell you a bit about the market right now for tackles. If you're looking for a free agent tackle, you're not going to find a great one to play outside of Tyron Smith. Donovan Smith, I think, is a good player, but he's nothing crazy at this point. And there's a reason Kansas City's letting him walk. He was their starting left tackle, protecting the blind side of the most valuable piece in NFL history. Yes, I said it and I meant it. So it's tough because I would have to swing him out to right tackle in this theoretical team I'm making because of the depressed market for the offensive line. But a backup there would be Josh Nijman, who's hot and cold from Green Bay. Again, the tackle market's just not great. Your best options, Michael Wenwu. Oh, jeez, I forgot Michael Wenwu. So I'd probably take Nijman out from that market. Or actually, I'd take Josh Jones out, keep Nijman as a backup. Wenwu would probably go as a 2, would go as the right tackle, and I'd take Donovan Smith out too, just because of youth and price tag possibly, but it's not a phenomenal class. Tyron Smith is the cornerstone of that kind of free agency class of tackles. There's not much else. Now we go to guard. Kevin Zeitler, long in the tooth, but still a good player. Coming out of Baltimore, he's nearing the end, but he could still give you a year or two of good play. And I had him backed up by Cody Whitehair. They're just, again, the guards. It's much like the tackles. It's a rough year for free agent guards. And I went with John Runyon, the guard from Green Bay. He really showed a lot this past couple of years, but especially this last year, going up against some higher end players. And Runyon's got some versatility playing in different positions. Can play different sides of the line, fill in a lot of holes. That's kind of the Green Bay specialty, is finding guys that are versatile. So that's why I like Nijman and Runyon as well. They have versatility playing different positions. And I have Jonah Jackson as a close second, right guard position. Runyon, I think, is another guy that would be a value add. I don't think he's going to come at a super high price tag, but could add some value and some real help to your offensive line. So I like John Runyon a lot. And then center was difficult. I came up with 3 names that were even worthwhile to think about. Connor Williams out of Miami, but he's coming off an ACL. Lloyd Cushenberry, he's been a functional, decent player for Denver, one of the few during the Russell Wilson era. And Tyler Biotish, I went with Biotish. I think he's just the best of the three. I don't think there's any world breaker there. I think there's a lot of people that may take Connor Williams over Biotish, but for health reasons, I took Biotish over Williams. Again, it's a depressed market. It's not great for if you need a center, you're not going to probably find a great answer in free agency this year. So that's something to keep in mind as you do things. And we move forward finally to the coup de grace and an actual good market. It's quarterback market. The obvious headliner is Kirk Cousins. There's no choice but making him the starter of this team. Played really, really well last year and the past season. This past season until the injury was obviously rough, but he was playing really well. And a lot of people are starting to drink the Kirk Cousins Kool-Aid for the first time. Possibly even too much, which is crazy to say, but rumors are he might go to Atlanta, but I think it'd be foolish for Minnesota to let him walk. But I get it. They got to pay Justin Jefferson too. And maybe if you don't have Kirk Cousins to pay, maybe you could get Danielle Hunter back, but you never know. But Kirk Cousins, the obvious one, the obvious two to me, Baker Mayfield. But this is a good quarterback market to especially get a backup quarterback who could be a serviceable replacement for a little while. The kind of ideal backup. Jacoby Brissett, good old Jake Brisket. Slice me off a piece of that Jake Brisket. I would always take Jacoby Brissett in my quarterback room. Ryan Tannehill is available, who could be a serviceable player. Tyler Huntley, who showed he can be a serviceable backup. Joe Flacco off a hot streak, even though he's the Stone Age pony. And Gardner Minshew is also available. And simply due to cap dollars, you could get a really cheap Russell Wilson. So if you're completely boned and need a quarterback, you might be able to get Russell Wilson to get you through on the cheap because Denver's going to be paying that salary. But his play was not enough. The salary idea is great as a free agency proposition signing. The play is not nearly exciting enough to say, oh, just go get Russell Wilson and it'll solve your problems. It's not like that. So Kirk Cousins is the obvious one. His play these past 2 years has really turned people around to seeing his value. And he's played borderline top 10 level past couple years in Minnesota, especially since Kevin O'Connell came into town. He's just been awesome in that offense and deserves a lot of credit for it. So Kirk Cousins is the headline and leader of the all free agency 2024, the 2024 all free agency team from the ONETA Football Show and PT Creative. But I think this is a good team. You have highlight players like a Danielle Hunter, Chris Jones. You know, you get a Tyron Smith would be a good player. Saquon Barkley, Kirk Cousins. Those are your highlights. Those are 5-6 good cornerstone pieces there. But then you have depressed assets, possibly at the wide receiver position, tight end position, if you couldn't get all these players. Offensive line could be solid, but it's only because you got the creme de la creme. But the defensive line would be stacked if you went with just all free agents. So you'd be able to be very competitive with a team like this if you had the all free agency team playing as a one solid Madden franchise, so to speak, this year in free agency to an actual schedule. But that is all our main topics. That is all the free agency team of 2024. Now, before you go, I have a little bit of a preview for you for the next 3 weeks, actually. Next week, it's all free agency reactions. We're talking about who got signed where. Is it a good fit? Does it make sense? Was the money too much? Was the money not enough? What's the market looking like? I'm going to be recording that as late on Wednesday night as possible so I get as much information as I can to share with you guys. And it's going to be interesting to get some of those headline players there. And then we're going to finally get into, on the 21st, we're finally going to get some draft notes. I'm going to be talking QBs. I am through my analysis of the top, the widely considered top 4, and I already kind of tipped my hand toward Caleb Williams. Well, but I have some good notes on those 4 players, but I'm going to have more players. I'm going to give you my top 5 quarterbacks, and I'm going to give you some notes on everybody. in the class that I think is worthy of studying. Unfortunately, I only have so much time, so I can't scout every player, but I try to scout as many players as I possibly can. So I want to have a well-rounded draft, and I like watching rounds 2 and 3. And if I even have the time, I'll even watch 4 through 7 because I think it's important to understanding how team building works, being a little bit more understanding as a fan. And then finally, last show of March is going to be mock 1.0. I'm thinking about doing 2 mock drafts this year. Technically 3, I guess. But it's really 2. I'm going to be doing mock 1.0 is going to be March 28th. The week of the draft, I'm going to be doing an early version of this show, which is late April, so you guys don't have to worry about that just yet. But I'm going to do what would I do draft and what I think is actually going to happen mock draft, which would be mock 2.0. But I'm only doing those 2. I don't want to do the Kuiper 5, or I don't want to do the continually one. I love reading mock drafts. I think it's just interesting from a what would you do standpoint. But I want to stick to just the 2 because I want to get in and refresh my head where I'm at doing those mock drafts. But at the same time, I don't want to go crazy just doing mock drafts because really there's also a part of it that's a fruitless exercise. Don't worry about that. It's kind of fun. Or as some people would say, sometimes mock drafts are just straight up mental masturbation. But it's fun, so who cares? But that is preview for next time. But again, go check out the Etsy shop. I'm going to put it up one more time. ptcreative.etsy.com. Use the promo code BLISS for any order of 2 items or more, and you're going to get 20% off. That sale ends next week as of this recording. Wednesday, March 13th, that sale ends. Use that promo code, get those codes in, and we are going to be having new merchandise coming soon to the show, from the show to the shop, including some Jason Kelsey stuff and some other things football related as well. But beyond that, go check out our other shows on PT Creative, as I already asked you to do before. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with as many people as you possibly can, and check out our socials. It's all PT Creative. I'm trying to get a little bit more in depth with the socials, but it's a work in progress because admittedly I'm not a big social guy. But nonetheless, go check it out. Help us as much as you possibly can. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. I'll catch y'all next time on the show. Peace, love, and hugs. We out.